Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lost in Translation show, where we explore the past to help people understand what's happening in the world today. And thank you for joining us. It's a beautiful fall day here in the Sierra Mountains. Our topic this morning is not for children because the topics are of a very sensitive nature. So if you've got any little ones or anyone who's suffering from PTSD, this might not be the right show for them. Before we get started, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to support the channel, my Zelle and Venmo accounts are listed in the comment section below. Our special guest today is Holly Baglio. Holly is an ex-super soldier, MK Ultra survivor that grew up in a dome. And for those of you that don't know, a dome is a deep underground military base. Her new autobiography, Kids in a Cage, is coming out this month, and we'll give you more details at the end of the show. Her book contains her drawings of growing up in a cage, being electrocuted, mind controlled, and programmed. As the government's black operations continue to be exposed, more and more people are coming forward with their heart-wrenching stories of our own government's crimes, not only against children, but against humanity. So, with that introduction, welcome, Holly, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for a beautiful introduction.
Oh,
So,
you're welcome. I've been looking forward to talking with you. I know we've shared some other stories here on my web page. It can be a little upsetting for a lot of people, but the truth is that you overcame and you're here today, and you're also trying to help children who might still be caught up in this whole system.
yes,
So, did you want to just kind of tell us a little bit about your childhood? I know for some people it's going to be kind of shocking.
yes. Okay. Well, I have two sets of memories my whole life. I was born into the MK Ultra projects. Um, MK Ultra stands for mind control. It's German. The MK is German for mind control. And these projects stem from Operation Paperclip at the end of World War II that saved approximately 1,500 Nazi elect and scientists. And they were spared and went to different parts of the world to continue on with their different sciences. And Joseph Mengele, nicknamed the Angel of Death from World War II, was one of those people. And he went on to continue with his human and genetic experimentation. So when it came to me and the specific group of kids that I was trafficked with when I was younger, we were all genetic experimentations. He used gene splicing. He used my biological mother and biological father's DNA, as well as the Rothschild who paid him money to create me, and Anunnaki DNA. He used these different DNA strains, spliced them together. I was implanted in my mother's womb. And while she was pregnant with me, the MK Ultra programming started. So I was traumatized in the womb. I won't get into details about that, but I was traumatized in the womb. And when she gave birth to me, I came out breech, which means my butt came out first. I was bent in half. So from that time, all my life up until the age of 37, I have two sets of memories. I have a set of memories in on the surface of the earth, my normal life here where we are now, but then I had a second set of memories from growing up in the deep underground military bases, the DUMBs. So my grandfather, there's a couple of factors that go into this. My grandparents on my mother's side raised me, and my grandfather was a chef on a minesweeper ship in World War II. And he used to come home and tell my grandmother, how the Navy would give him and the other soldiers LSD, marijuana, and other drugs just to see what it would do. And she thought he was full of malarkey, but I think he was an unknowing, unwilling candidate in the MK Ultra experiments, and with things such as Project Looking Glass. And for lack of better terms, Project Looking Glass tells you who's going to be born and what's going to happen in a person's life journey. Um, so they knew I was coming and they tracked me. On my mother was never around, so she just dropped me on my grandparents. On my father's side of the family, my mother kept me from him. Even though she wasn't around herself, she kept me from him. And the Baglio side of my family had mafia connections, and there was a prearranged marriage waiting for me when I turned 18. But since I was raised outside the family, they did not hold me to it. So there are a bunch of red flags. But so my whole life, that's pretty much a background and short and skinny of it. Sorry.
Well, now that your parents, were they, and I mean, it sounds like, were they part of it? Were their relatives, the mafia and the Vatican and the Nazis worked very close together? Was there,
Um,
how did you, like, how did they get into the program?
okay. I don't think that they were a part of it. And if they were, I don't know the connections whatsoever, to be honest with you, because I only met my father when I was 18 and then he died when I was 25. So I only had 7 years with him. And during that time, I was not even awake. I was still under the hypnosis and programming, and I was still an active super soldier. So I was not even awake to ask him any sort of questions in that capacity. I think the major link would be with my grandfather having been in the Navy himself. I think that that's the main link. My mother, she was never a part of these projects, but I think that they used her to, well, give birth to me to reinforce the programming because she was never around. But her herself, when I did reunite with her for a short period of time, I asked her a series of questions, but I do not believe that she was in the projects herself, not to the extent that I was by any means.
Well,
So
how did
it
she
was
get
just,
impregnated if she wasn't part of the program? Were they have seeking infertility treatments, or how did that come about?
they could have easily come in and hypnotized her, and she would not have been the wiser. But no, she met my father at high school, had a couple of dates, happened to get pregnant, and then thought, oh, why not get married? So it was not planned or anything like that.
Okay. And so a lot of people are going to call us conspiracy theorists as we start going. They don't believe in the MK Ultra mind control programs. Can you explain what MK Ultra is? Does it have to do with the monarch butterfly recessive memory?
That's one of the projects for MK Ultra. Monarch is one of those projects. They have an MK Ultra project for every letter of the Greek alphabet, and I went through that, such as alpha, beta, delta, gamma, and so on. Project Beta, I went through Project Beta, and I think that's similar to Monarch. But since I was born into these projects, having been a created, engineered human, um, it was a little bit different for me. When I was born, they mind controlled me, chipped me, and then surgically enhanced me and the other uh, engineered kids that I was with in that small group. Um, the mind control was to split our personality and create alters. And these alters were um, programmed with different skill sets, whether it be a spy or a prostitute to collect information, or a drug runner, or an assassin, or maybe a politician, or an actress, or singer. Different skill sets would be programmed into these alters, but also by creating these alters, the predators were able to stay anonymous. Even still to this day, even though I'm healed and cured, my memories are very fragmented, and a lot of them are just flash images, and it's really hard to put them together and really connect them in one flowing thought. So I'm not sure if I answered the
Well,
question.
how about this? Okay, so a super soldier doesn't just mean somebody who goes out into battle. We're talking about the people that work for the matrix that we're all trapped in, right? And they're the banking system, they're the, like you said, the movie, the influencers, right? So Are the super soldiers really the participants in keeping the Matrix? Or are they
Uh,
soldiers that go out and kill people? Like, or they're
um,
both?
well, for I'm exposing just a certain kind of MK Ultra project. There's other ones. For instance, the shooters that we see nowadays, it takes the programmers a week. They can kidnap somebody, spend a week programming them and hypnotizing them, mind controlling them, and turn them into a shooter. 2 weeks if they're a difficult case. So the super soldier projects I came from, basically the elites like the Rothschilds and Rockefellers, they're creating humans to be their own personal army and concubines and to do what they want with them. So for me, I was used as an assassin as well as I was a part of the breeding projects. The very Rothschild that paid Joseph Mengele money to create me was the very Rothschild who impregnated me. And when I gave birth to my child, he took it and sacrificed it on the spot. So um, for me, a super soldier is basically they took my supernatural abilities and turned me into a soldier and then sent me out for their evil, nefarious deeds. So that's what I think a super soldier is, or that's at least what it is to me.
Okay. And apparently these programs are still going on. I've noticed that a lot of, and they even did a few different movies and Law and Orders about these split personalities. There's a relation to transgenderism. Does the constant splitting of the personality lead to that? I know there's been quite a few of the recent shooters, or is that a byproduct of because the New World Order's plan is to remove the female gender. I mean, it's the primary goal of the United Nations founding principle. So is it all caught up in this somehow? And can you elaborate?
I hope I can.
Okay.
Um, Uh, well, I think it can be a byproduct because of the mind control. The mind control affects every aspect and area of your life, and especially sexuality, because sexuality affects all of us across the board. It doesn't matter who you are, what walk of life you come from, what age or what gender, you're being affected by sex and sexuality. For me, when I went through these MK Ultra projects, what the lab coats would do, they absolutely attacked our sexuality and caused confusion. The lab coats, I have this memory where in one of the projects, the adults, the lab coats, were laughing at me. And I know it might sound funny, but when you say it to a small child, it's not so funny anymore. But I was under the age of 10 years old. And I remember the adults, my memory clicks in where the adults are laughing at me saying, ha ha ha, you broke yours off. Now you have to live as a girl, and that's gross because now you have to have sex with boys, and it was never meant to be like that. And ill, that's gross. And look at you, you're not living right, and you're filthy. So they absolutely attack your sexuality. You have no, you're stripped of your identity, um, and that's when they can mold you to be a slave. But plus, two, also, when I was younger, like to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old and being raped by the adults, I couldn't understand why a woman of all people were doing it. So in my head, I just thought, okay, I have to pretend. I know that alters were programmed into me, but in my head, to try to make sense of it, I just thought, okay, now I have to pretend to be a boy. And that was the only way I could make sense of it as a small child. So
Um, Uh, do you think these programs are still going on? And have you been able to help anyone else? I know some of the other people I interviewed, they were actually in front of Congress. But if you understand that Washington, D.C. is full of underground tunnel systems and children are trafficked there. When I first started understanding this, I was looking up a few law firms to see who was handling this, if it was really going on. And before the open borders, the top destination for smuggled children was Washington, D.C. And it just stunned me. I'm like, it's only 10 square miles. How can they be getting more kids than New York? But when you understand what's going on in the underground tunnel systems and even under the White House, can you comment on any of that? Or under some of the major cities, like the city of London, Vancouver, they just arrested a bunch of people sacrificing children. I'm not sure if you're aware, for the International Tribunal for Crimes of Church and State. Over Halloween, they were raiding the Ninth Circle cult of the Vatican cult. And they actually arrested people in several countries, including Canada and Vancouver and Belgium, where there's massive underground tunnel systems and where the Belgium are heavily involved in child and human trafficking.
I'm so happy to hear that. Excuse my hesitation to jump because I've heard a lot of other false reports in the past, but
Well,
boy,
this is actually the International Tribunal for Crimes of Church and State. It's headed by a guy named Kevin Annett, and he was exposing. They just also arrested the head cardinal in Berlin, and they indicted and convicted 13 people, including Prince Charles and Prince Andrew. So that's why we see all the stripping of the titles and everything.
good.
I think Prince Andrew might be the next one, but. They literally saved quite a few Chinese children because the Chinese have massive underground systems in Canada. Canada has been overtaken by the CCP, and they are literally in the child trafficking for the organ harvesting. So they bring them into Canada, which you may not be aware is the destination all over the world for euthanasia. One out of everyone, 21 people in Canada currently dies under the euthanasia. They're the destination for the world. And of course, they're harvesting their organs. So they're convincing people to commit suicide for their organs. And this is literally going on in Canada right now. Canada, again, has been captured by the CCP. Canada is part of the British Commonwealth, so they don't have a constitution. And that's why we see so much turmoil in Canada today because people don't understand what's going on, but their system's being flipped. And I'm praying it's being flipped to the right side. So there's some encouragement for you.
Thank you so
And I'll
much.
connect you with Kevin. You can look at his work. And it's not just him. The governments of several countries have agreed to enforce the indictments, and those are being executed as we speak. So
Oh, I pray for their protection. I pray for the victims. Oh, I pray everything comes to fruition.
I'm going to connect you with this because I'm sure there'll be a lot of people in your sphere of friends and family that will really look forward to this news. So it's pretty exciting. There's people that we think are on our side that have also been indicted, and including the Pope, the old Pope, and the new Pope. So
Good,
yeah, so we won't go into the connections of the Catholic Church and the Nazi and the mind control programs, but literally the Catholic Church owns the matrix system that we live in, and therefore they are the controlling, the face of the entity that you're speaking about today. And again, this isn't about regular Catholics. I grew up in a Catholic school. I took my grandma to church every Sunday until she passed away. This is about the political and financial structures that rule our world. So now, why are you been able to speak out without fear of retribution, or are you still having fear of retribution?
Um, I do fear retribution. There's certain names that I will not speak publicly. I don't need the drama. I also don't need the threats, and they're not going to be brought to justice. So I'm not going to throw myself out there for it. That wouldn't make sense. I think two things. Number one, I was decommissioned and they released me. So I think that by me speaking out for them, it only works for them because they can say, hey, look what we did with your tax dollars. You didn't even know this was happening, and we've been doing it the whole time right underneath your nose. But then also, honestly, I turned my life over to Heavenly Abba. And first and foremost, he's my security team. And I needed to sleep at night. And I would not have been able to sleep with myself if I did not come forward and say something about what happened to me. And this is my way to go back for the children. I mean, unless somebody wants to give me weapons, a small army, and unlimited ammo, You know,
Well, you're a trained assassin now. Do you remember that part of your life, or does that block out? And
um,
have
well,
you, like, how does that work? Right?
that's a great question. Well, to be a super soldier, we were put through satanic rituals and sacrifices. So we we were demonically possessed and using those supernatural abilities that we were getting from the fallen ones, fallen
Hmm.
angels, aliens, or fallen entities, whatever you call them. Um, so I was set free from demonic possession. Um, but my memories are fragmented. So I don't have all of them. I know they're still stored up in my memory. Um, but through the blood of the Lamb, He set me free. So as far as having those skill sets and all of that, it's been, I don't know, it's been washed away in the blood of the Lamb. But if I were you, I would not want to come back, like come for me and like come up from behind me and startle me to see if I remember things. I would not do that. But um, when the demons left, that took the ability to speak different languages and that took different skill sets as well. So on their way out, they took all that bad stuff out. But again, my memories are fragmented and I don't have them all. So, you
Okay.
know, if that makes
And
sense.
so you don't have any recollections as a super soldier. Can you go into detail about the DUMBs and I guess what was happening down there? And are they predominantly, like, I live near Mount Shasta. I personally believe a lot of the fires that we've seen, not only are they removing us from the land, but like you were saying, they're doing all kinds of geoengineering. There's all kinds of strange things that people see up here. I think part of the fires was so nobody could escape from those underground military bases. This has just been one of my theories because they predominantly occurred on federal land, which these experiments are going on, right? Most of the people who disappear in the country disappear in federal parks, like a predominant number of people, and they a lot of them tend to be of Jewish descent in academics. So when you really break down some different categories. I this one guy, I wish I would have recorded it, but he tracked all of the things that happen in federal parks and and the fact that the government doesn't report all these missing people because it doesn't go into like the local numbers or whatever. And he went on for years, and there was hundreds of thousands of people who disappeared according to his reporting in our federal parks. Any comments?
Oh, I believe it's true. They want you to think that the monster under your bed is not real, but meanwhile, it's very much real. And I think maybe that's why they keep us out of all of these federal parks, is so we don't find out the truth. And that's why these people are going missing, is they're being grabbed by these different entities or these different military experiments that are going on. And um, but as far as what it was like for me and the Dumbs, they would come and whether they took me out of school or they took me out of my grandparents' house at night, they would come and take me and bring me into the Dumbs. I only have a couple of memories where it was black operations or one of the programmers coming in to take me out of the house as a small child, or when I walked out of school at right there with all the buses lined up. There's the programmer sitting in his car, and he's going to make me get in that car. Um, so at first, it was the same kids over and over again, but as I got older, they changed. But we were brought in and we were kept in cages. We were not given food and clothes and water or taken care of in that capacity. Um, in some of my memories, the dumbs that I were in, it looks similar to like if you walked into a Walmart super center and you took out the aisles with the products and replaced them with cages, about 10 to 5 kids in each cage throughout the whole place. It kind of looked like that. And then they would electrocute us and the majority of the children would die, but the ones that were still left alive, I guess they had certain genetics that these programmers were looking for, and then they would program these children. Um, there, in another memory, I remember we were kept in this room, maybe the size of a typical classroom or courtroom, and the cages were three stacked high, and we were kept in the cages, but there were only slots to look out. Um, and there was a table in the middle of the room, and on that table was where the programmers, like Joseph Mangley, would torture a child to death. But it wasn't only about mind control. Mangley was also a sorcerer, so he was doing satanic rituals and summoning down these entities. And I was being opened up to that. So it wasn't just seeing this child being mutilated, it's also that he's summoning Satan to come join him, and to witness that. Um, but I'm not sure if that really answered your
Well, I
question.
think that's just giving most of us an idea of and why would they electrocute you? Is it the fear opens up portals that these entities, like when we're in a certain state, it allows something to happen to us that normally wouldn't happen? So why is the trauma-based therapy so effective with demonic entities, I guess would be a better question.
The demonic entities just reinforce the trauma, and they can assist and guide the person to do what they want the person to do. Um, so the electrocutions were to be so traumatic and terrific that it would fracture us. And in that fracturing, like I would have leave my body and be out of there, but what was left over was a shell of a person, and that's what Mangley and the other programmers would program, similar to a computer. Um, and then as far as the demonic possession, it's not that they assigned one specific demon to one specific altar. No, you're either demonically possessed or you're not. When you're demonically possessed, the demon will take over and make sure that the person stays under the hypnosis. But also, Mangley, um, he created himself inside. So he created like the altars when they would come forward, they would think Mangley's watching me. He's standing over my shoulder. He's right there. Wherever I am, I'm always watched. And then Mangley would also program altars to monitor me. So I had a built-in system that would monitor me. And if I woke up and started to realize what was happening, an altar would come along and reprogram me and say, no, that's just a figment in your mind. Go back to sleep, Holly. It's nothing. Pass it off. So there's an absolute method to his madness. It's not just traumatize and hurt the person. It's calculated and strategic. I believe Fitz Springmeier wrote a book where he spent 8 years in prison just to get this book out, and the title was something to the effect of Illuminati's guide to creating the ultimate undetectable mind control slave. So these programmers have a method to their madness. Um, but this is, this mind. That's I think what I wanted to get on was the mass mind control on a mass scale. So what they were doing with my children, I was born in 1974. So what they were doing with me and the other children is they were perfecting these mind control techniques. So they don't have to get you solely under the age of 6 anymore to fracture your mind and program you. They no longer have to get certain genetics and certain characteristics. They can get you with any DNA, any genetics, any background, any nationalities, and at any age. And instead of traumatizing and torturing you, they can just give you an injection. They have perfected these techniques. So now they can turn around and use it on a grand mass scale, whether it be video games or sporting events or vaccines. They perfected all of these different things to use it on a grand mass population.
Do you
So,
think that could have had something to do, we won't mention the name, but with the 2020 issue and people who were more susceptible? One of the reasons I wanted to have you is to establish and share your story, but to also help people understand that this mass mind control trauma situation we find ourselves in with the 24-hour news cycle, nothing's getting better. We're never going to get a job. All of these, everybody hates everybody. The world's going to be in a civil war. I noticed that this mass, like between television, the internet, and the radio over the last 125 years, it's given them this whole new mechanism to traumatize large groups of people at the same time, even though it may not even be something real, right? And they usually do a mass trauma event when they're all getting caught. It was really unusual. We had the same day Charlie Kirk took up 6 weeks of the news cycle. In China, they had another murder that took up 6 weeks of the news cycle. What was happening? The banking system was collapsing. All the pedophiles were getting caught, and they're trying to force us into a world war because the last few times we found out, like after the Depression and that, they do this massive, like the Depression was a trauma event.
yeah,
The bankers caused it, and then they made it last longer with their policies. So what I guess my point is that we're all having this. You had it at the extreme, but like you're saying, they don't even have to get you and trap you and have the same bloodline or anything anymore because the internet and that has allowed us to mass traumatize people. It is not normal to see people with Trump derangement syndrome. To me, I don't like politicians. I spent my life around them. I understand they all work for the bankers. So I can, like, if they do something good, I'm like, great. If they do something bad, I'm like, yeah, well, what do you expect? They don't work for us.
all
But
right,
these these events and this thing where they have half the world hating a man they've never met, this is not a normal response to politics. So
right. And he
I
was
guess,
never in the dumps.
right.
Yeah, he was never in the dumps hurting kids, but all the other presidents since 1974 were in the dumps hurting kids, especially George Bush Sr.
Yes.
And George Bush Jr., he put him through the projects too, but that guy was not reliable. Nobody liked him. Um, he just, anyway, but Trump was the only one that was not in these projects hurting the kids. I mean, Queen Elizabeth even had a direct hand in hurting us.
Yes.
So, and yeah, I don't really understand all the derangement syndrome. I think people are wasting their time in the wrong area.
Me too, because the politicians, again, don't work for us, including Donald Trump. And so, what we have to understand, it's really this control mechanism. I mean, Donald Trump has his connections to the mafia and to Jeffrey Epstein and all these different things. And I'm not saying anything about Trump. A lot of people who like my channel, I am not emotionally involved with these people. If they do something good, great. Hey, they did something good. But I'm not going to argue with my relatives. I'm not going to people say, "Oh, you're a far right conspiracy theorist." And I'm like, "No, I'm a person who's lived all over the world and actually had a close friend who was trafficked and committed suicide." So, I'm speaking from a place of, the CIA had massive operations going on north of San Francisco throughout the 60s and 70s. I didn't understand what was going on. My friend started presenting with multiple, like she had really bad ADHD and it kept getting worse and she couldn't concentrate on anything. But as I look back, I realized that her grandfather and her uncle, I believe, were both in some kind of programs that were being run out of Sonoma County, actually, where I grew up. And, California is an epicenter for the MK mind control programs. And so I didn't understand any of this, even when it was happening. And even when my friend first jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge, I didn't. But I watched an interview with her boyfriend, and he said, I believe someone told her to do it. And I believe maybe her boyfriend had some inkling she was being trafficked to the Saudis and the founders of the United Arab Emirates. And so this is what got me down this trafficked road. And since that time, the area I live here in Northern California, I've met three different people who were trafficked in the system. One woman went, just these random people. I feel like somehow this is like there's this energy that's connecting all of us, through God's power for random women to tell me their stories. And also the first thing that really clued me in is I have a cabin. I was having some work, so I had my travel trailer down at a travel park here. And I started talking to a woman. She's like, "Yeah, my daughter was is here in a home because she was being trafficked out of San Diego." And what I found out from her, they're usually single women that have no power. The mother's working two and three jobs. It's not that she's a bad mother, she's just trying to provide. Her daughter was being flown to Las Vegas during the day and she was only 13, but the judge that ruled on their case in San Diego was one of the customers. And so the daughter got sent for 18 months to one of these group homes, and the mother got fired from her job, fined, and had to attend thousands of dollars in parenting classes. Um, and so that's how I met her up here. And since that time, I've met two other women here that were abused at the Bohemian Grove, which is about 10 miles from where I grew up. So I was familiar with the Bohemian Grove activity. And if you know, George Bush Sr. was heavily active in that. And I don't know if you know, like Fiona Holmes, I think her name was. She's the Australian MK Ultra. She used to be flown into Bohemian Grove.
Barnett, you mean Fiona
Grandfather.
Barnett? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's kind of why I started looking into this. And a lot of these things present with people who have serious drug and alcohol problems, and they end up getting ostracized. They're dealing with this PTSD. And as I'm understanding from you, they may not even remember the trauma that they're suffering from. And that, because I think alcoholism is a big tell. I've
Yeah,
noticed that with people who were sexually abused by uh, people, alcoholism and drug abuse is a way to deal with that inner child. Maybe you want
that
me to
they know the
explain.
pain. I went through those
Oh,
phases
did
where
you?
I would fall into my pints of ale back in November 2016 when my alters came forward because they're the ones that went through everything for me. I was checked out. I mean, I couldn't have handled that. They went through it for me, but I woke up in 2014, but there was a period in 2016 where my alters came forward and said, "Holly, we've been used in sex trafficking and there may be videos of us." And I fell to pieces. And I'll be very honest with you, and Abba forgive me because I I started forming a relationship with my creator in 2013. And I would need that foundation because in 2014 is when I had the flash flood of memories. So I needed him. But even having my faith and even with the support system that I have, I'll be honest, I fell into bottles of 151 Bacardi for 6 months. I had a very tough time dealing with the fact that I was used sexually as a small child. I went through a rough time dealing with that. Even waking up from the MK Ultra projects in general back in 2014, I was in such shock that I lost my ability to talk for 10 months. I just, I understand all of that, but there's absolutely a way out of that, and we don't have to depend on drugs or alcohol. It's not easy, and it's not an overnight process, but what Heavenly Abba, Abba means Father. First, I got a relationship with Him, which I needed it, but I got it with Him. I found Him. I went directly to Him and asked Him for help. So, on my own, I didn't have the help of a church. I didn't have friends and family when I first woke up from MK Ultras. I was all by myself. But I knew that Heavenly Abba had never lied to me. I really didn't know him, but somebody had said his words were still living. So if they were still living, that means I could still have a miracle. So I went to him, and I just went to him, introduced myself, repented to him, and asked him for help. And he did. He guided me in my normal life. I came off of prescriptions that I was on for my disabilities, and I found a much more natural way of life. But, it was Heavenly Abba that tapped my shoulder and said, Holly, there's something else we have to get right. And he held my hand through the whole waking up process. Um, but I have to say, to make that, it was Heavenly Abba, my Savior, that made everything a lot easier. When he says, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life, he's saying, I am the way, I'm the way out. Come to me. I'll help you get out. I will give you the answers and I'll carry you if you need to be carried. So,
Now, in these MK mind control programs, what's the God influence? Like, do they fear God? Like a lot of these, like Bill Gates and those people, they want to live forever because I think they know that they've been bad and they don't want to go to the bad place or, hell or purgatory or wherever it is that you believe in. Because you'll notice that a lot of these people can quote the Bible better than you can. So it can be kind of confusing sometimes. Uh,
yeah.
to, can you elaborate a little?
Oh, geez, I just forgot my answer. Can you just
Oh,
read?
well, I was just, no problem. Well, when you're down in these domes and they're obviously channeling Satan, what is it about God? Are they deflecting the God energy? Are they trying to fight the God energy? Like, as just regular people, can you explain this eternal battle and how it's being fought right now?
Okay, thank you so much. Now, the programmers, the White Lab coats, they do not fear Heavenly Abba. It's going to be their downfall. I was put through different projects where one was programming us to think we were an actual angel in a human body. Um, there was another programmer. He would read First John, Second John, and Third John from the Bible, and while he read that, he would rape and beat me and the other children along to it. And I'm not trying to be rude, but it always had to be King James Version.
Well,
Um,
it's a version,
it
right? It's
always
not
had
a
to be King
translation, it's
James.
a version.
Yes, King
And it was
James.
also written after the Catholic Church took control of the monarchies. They lost their power
Well,
because they
he
were big
rewrote the
on an
Bible.
agreement. What?
Right. Well, I didn't mean to cut you off, but he rewrote the Bible. So he rewrote
Yes.
all of his entities into that Bible.
Well, and if you understand Masonry and the Illuminati, they believe that Revelation is actually a guidebook. I've always been curious about Revelation. It didn't come into the Bible like 100 years later. It has all this. If God loves his people, why is he killing them all? Right? To me, it was a much more. So I've always been, and my actual name means rebellious listener. My name's Simone Marie. And so those literally translate in Hebrew. So I never agree with anything. My poor parents, when from the time I was 5, I just couldn't. I wrote a letter to Nixon, and when I was in first grade, because I didn't think you should go to China, and my parents are just like, "Who is this child?" Right? So yeah, life is strange, and children pick up on things a lot more than adults, and I would pick up on things my parents thought were too young, too old for me, right? But every child has a different sensitivity and a mental awareness. So do they kind of prey on your personality types? Like, would they pick well, you were since you were a baby, but do they like classify children in schools like the communists used to do? And if they were smart, the government would literally just take them? Is that part of the MK Ultra or their different breeding programs?
I think there's different programs. Like, not sure. Like for me, in my normal life, when I was a little kid in grammar school, they would take me out of my regular classes and bring me to core classes. And sometimes I don't remember what happened once they took me out of those classes. So, like, they called me stupid. They said I had a lot of learning disabilities. But for instance, like on the color table, it shows red, yellow, blue. Well, I would see another separate and distinct color. It was off the table, but it was right next to the color chart. It was a yellow orange color. It was its own color. But because I could see that and other reasons, they said I had learning disabilities and put me in smaller classes. So I think it depends the MK Ultra projects and what they're actually doing. Um,
What the goal of the program is that they're
Yeah, and
viewing.
what type of child they're looking for. I heard from other super soldiers that they had been a part of projects where it was all black kids and they were the only white kid. Um, so the kids I was with, we were all uh, created human beings. We all had the Rothschild. There were other kids that had other genetics, but it was one of the wealthy elite families that paid Mangley, hey, create me a child with my genetics, this, that, the other thing, or with my DNA. And that's, we play with Barbie dolls. The elites, they play with human beings. And, the Rothschilds and Rockefellers, they don't care what our government does. They make the money. They run the show.
Now, did you have like friends in school? Were you friends with the other prisoners? Were you able to relate? Did you have like a high school boyfriend or I mean, did you have normal childhood experiences? And like, what was your family if you lived with your grandparents and someone would come take you in the middle of the night?
They didn't
Oh, they didn't know?
they didn't know.
Oh, your
They had
grandparents
no
didn't
idea.
know.
No, my family had no idea that I was being used. I mean, my grandfather, it didn't even dawn on him that he was being used in these human experimentation projects, but my family had no idea, and they were not a part of the projects themselves. I was implanted in my mother's womb. I was the experiment that they kept track of. Um, so, like in this normal life, yeah, I had friends. I got married too, which was a mistake. I have not had kids. I got married in my early 20s, but I went to college for accounting. I worked for AT&T in Pharmacia as an executive assistant, um, basically a glorified secretary. But I had a normal, average life like everybody else.
Okay. So
So,
that's
yeah,
good. I mean, I vision you like being this lonely, isolated child. I remember kids who had problems growing up and you'd see them and even as a child you would know there was something, but children aren't really aware of the way the world really works. You always knew, oh, that kid, seems like he doesn't have nice parents or something, to a child's thing. But as I look back, as again, as I got older and started to understand the way the world really works, couldn't identify my friend's ADHD because nobody talked about it then. And then the
yeah.
fact that it's a symptom of child abuse or sexual abuse sometimes, right? So it took a long time. Here I am in my 60s, just finally figuring it out. Unfortunately, maybe God saves your brain a little bit because you're busy raising your family and being married and doing all the things that we need to do. But so, was there any kind of person I know? Are you aware of Anneke? She's a Belgian girl who's got a book out right now, and she was trafficked through the system. And actually, one of her captors helped her finally get released. So, is there anything like that that
Um,
occurred,
wow.
or was there any goodness from anybody?
Yes, there was. Absolutely. I do, through all of those horrible memories, I do have a couple good memories in the dumps. Apparently, there was another super soldier that I was romantically involved with, and I was on Project Seagate, so he gave me a kiss in front of a Seagate. Um, there's a couple, but the best memory I have is when I was a little kid, uh, three boys and I made a pact in the dumps, and they were sending us deeper into the MK Ultra projects. And before we lost who we made a pact with each other, the four of us, and we made a pact saying if anybody got free, we would come back for the others. And one little boy was teasing me, saying, "Oh, you're too coward. You'll never come back for us. You're too chicken." And I said, "No, I promise to God I'll come back." And I was like, I don't know this God person, but so far he's the only one that hasn't lied to me. as much as my grandparents love me. They lied. They told me about Santa. So,
An
but
anagram for Satan.
right. So I didn't even say, because Jesus is not allowed to be spoken in the dumbs. If you want to say your Savior and Creator's name, you're not allowed to. You are not allowed to. Um, but I just simply said, I promised to God I will come back for you guys. And a reptilian ripped off the door to the room we were in and came and beat the ever living daylights out of me. But when I think I was 37 years old, December 2011, I'd been released in 2008, but I was not awake yet. I was still buried under the hypnosis and programming. But those three boys, when they got released, they came back for me. I had flown out to Colorado on a vacation, and they approached me at a Hooters bar, and they told me that they were getting out. They got out, and they were going to come on TV and tell the world what happened to them. And what would you like to do, Holly? They asked me if I remembered them and the other kids in the cages. And I said, no, I don't. I wasn't awake yet. It still took me some more time after that for the hypnosis to wear off. So,
So there's hope. And
yeah,
a group of us podcasters got together the day before Halloween because this is a satanic ritual abuse day. And again, they were rescuing children around the world. I've been watching this group of priests and deflect ministers who found out what was going on at the high levels of organized religion for about 10 years now. And they are bringing down these Ninth Circle. They had one of the cardinals smuggled out a book from the Vatican recently that covered all the murders and rape and torture sessions in the Ninth Circle in the tomb of Lucifer under the Vatican for the last 125 years. And of course, they also record it all. And they also have an advanced betting system where they bet on how long the children will live for the torture sessions. So this has all been exposed and documented. They actually have the footage. So I believe the new pope will also be brought down. But again, they use body doubles for so many of the people that have already been brought down here in the United States. They're just using body doubles. It's a position of power. They'll just replace you because you're just a cog in the wheel. And people
yeah,
think this stuff is crazy. But how many movies have they had to make? How many politicians that are we going to have that are really actors? Till we
yeah,
realize they're just all actors. Then they work for this system to keep our mind control. I mean, we're being mind controlled right now in public. So I was just thinking, just before we kind of wrap up, we're kind of getting to our little bit over an hour now. And this has been a super interesting discussion. And I'd love to have you back maybe when your book comes out in the spring. Now, I noticed that you like to draw, and a lot of your pictures are drawing. And can you just kind of talk about the recovery? And this might be helpful to not only people recovering, obviously, from being a super soldier, but from any kind of traumatic event, this kind of writing therapy I've seen that people are using.
yeah. I was always bad in school with grammar and English, but I have to say, writing, whether journalizing, or whatever it be, but to take everything that's locked up in my head or in my heart and put it down on paper and write it down for what I remember and for how I'm feeling, regardless if it sounds fantastical or otherwise, just to get it out. And then also I draw pictures. So for me, it's a release, it's therapy, but also now that like I've gotten all those thoughts out and I've drawn pictures of memories, well, now I have something to show for all that time. So I have a sense of accomplishment. So I can just take all of that and say, oh, well, here you go. This is what happened to me, you know? But I have to say the writing was really, really helpful, as especially drawing too. Um, it it really went to speak volumes for therapy. And the other thing too, Heavenly Abba fully reintegrated me, which means my 169 altars were all patched up into one whole operating unit. So it appears like they're gone. I'm healed. So they are gone. It's just me as one whole operating unit. But the other thing too was there was a long time where I was playing into the MK Ultra programming, thinking that I could get answers out of it. But once I stopped playing into the MK Ultra and just eradicated it, that's when I got the full reintegration and all of my alters healed. Um, I'll give an example of that. Um, I was programmed in Project Ibis. We were programmed to the different Egyptian deities, and Thoth, the ibis bird, he had a library. Well, in my mind's eye, I was programmed to have a library too. And inside that library, on every shelf was a book, and in every book was a super soldier memory, a memory of mine that I lived from my life. And I kept thinking, oh, well, if I go to this library and if I'm nice to the gatekeeper, then I'll get a book and I can see my memories. That was playing into the MK Ultra and just feeding it more, and I was getting nowhere. So when I took that library, my alters and I took that library and other areas of my mind that were under MK Ultra influence, and we trashed it. We nuked it. We got rid of it. And that's when the healing really happened for me. um, because I was taking a look at myself and what happened to me, getting it out, and then turning to Heavenly Father and having him also comfort me and guide me through this. I was also turning to him during this time, so he definitely had input, and he was wiping the tears away from my eyes. But geez, forgive me, I just drew a blank.
Oh,
But
that's
all
okay. I do that all the time. I'm
yeah.
61. That's becoming a normal part of my life. Okay,
So
so I'm trying to think of anything else that I can. Oh, so with the Rothschilds, now I've done extensive. Actually, I started coming on explaining who Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. That's originally when I started going on podcasts. Again, I'd been around women who trafficked. I was living in the Soviet Union during the fall of communism. I saw what was happening to the Russian and Ukrainian women. So I wasn't really aware of it. I could see what was going on, but I'm a farm girl from Northern California. This stuff never dawned on me that it was ever even really happening. And so, but when you look into Jeffrey Epstein, he was funding Harvard, he was funding Stanford, and they were doing these genetic super soldier, right? It starts to make sense. Why was he financing all this? And what's the real story to Jeffrey Epstein, not the sensational sex stories? What was Jeffrey Epstein really doing? What was he really funding? And, how is it still affecting us today? So, can you speak on that a little bit?
oh boy, good question. I um forgive me, I'm drawing another blank as
Oh,
far
that's
as
okay. Yeah, yeah.
he looks familiar to me. I don't think I was on Epstein's island per se, but he looks very familiar to me. And like you were saying with the tunnels under Washington, D.C., I was also trafficked over to Israel. And there's parts over in Israel that people say is going to be a part of the third temple built, but I was trafficked over and under there with children. So this is just widespread. I think that Epstein was a major cog in the wheel. I
Yeah.
do not think he's dead. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a real live breathing girl. The dumbs are real. This stuff is real. But I think he was an asset, and I don't think anything's going to be released, because it would bring everybody down,
Yes.
and they don't want that. So I don't think the government wants to tell the truth and admit how corrupt it is. Um,
Well, and right now, their goal, because these people are really the financial arm of the New World Order, which is Nazism, which is Alexander the Great, which is all these empires that have existed to control humanity, that Jeffrey Epstein is just a military officer, right? So he was involved in military activity. I was actually living in London, or at least working in London, when Ghislaine Maxwell's father supposedly fell off his boat. And many people believe he stole 600 million or billion. It may have been million, which was a lot of money in the 90s. I can't remember if it was billion, but he stole the pension plans of his, and he was a massive triple, quadruple agent for the Nazis and the British intelligence and the Russian government. And all of a sudden he was getting exposed for being, a Nazi sympathizer and all that. And he fell off his boat. Ghislaine Maxwell's sister's husband gets exposed for his crimes. He fell off the cliff and fell into the ocean. So these people have a lot of suicides. I believe Ghislaine Maxwell was his handler. She's a much higher level. But I took the Epstein bloodline back 1,000 years, and his family has been involved in human trafficking for over 1,000 years. And right there in the part of Ukraine where we're fighting about right now was the epicenter of human trafficking, which the Norse, which were from the line of Japheth, right? If you understand, Noah had three sons, and they all originally came from the those mountains in the north of Turkey. So it gets really confused when you go start thinking about it. But Jeffrey Epstein's family has been involved in child trafficking for over 1,000 years. And when his last name Epstein, they've changed their name probably at least 30 times since that time. And his name Epstein actually is from a city in Bavaria, which was called Epstein, and they changed their name, and that became the center of human child trafficking in Europe to this day, which is there in the corner of Bavaria. So you have to understand these people are generational character actors. They themselves have probably been through these same programs. If
Yeah.
you listen to the testimony of Ghislaine Maxwell's housekeeper that grew up, her father used to beat her every day, and he would whip her with a belt or a thing. Or so these people themselves, I believe, came out of this mind control system that's existed throughout. And this is how the monarchies stay in place, right? Because whenever someone gets well to do and their parents are rich, they want to give everything away. So that's why you see people like Prince Charles seems to have no empathy for anyone. And when you listen to his father said if he could come back again, he would come back as a plague and kill everybody on the planet. This is Prince Charles' father. So why people worship these people, I have no idea.
Right.
But again, I believe they've been put through a lot of this similar trauma and they just became abusers themselves. Any thoughts on that?
Um, yeah, I just while you were talking, forgive me, but I was picturing like George Bush Jr. in mind, and I just had these weird flashes in my mind, nothing that I can put my finger on or turn into a full thought, but it makes absolute sense with Epstein, and with a lot of other of them. Like I remember the Vanderbilt family.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember the kids to them, and the kids for the Cullens family. I remember being trafficked to their castles or wherever they were. There were times that I was chained up in Buckingham Palace dungeons, being put through a human hunting party. But then I remember when I was a little bit older, actually sitting at their tables with them and eating, not being tortured. Um, their kids go through it too. To what extent is different, but yes, their kids still have to go through it. Their minds are all fractured, and to do some of this stuff, it's so heinous. Like
Well,
for
there are
me,
also a lot of intermarriage, right? So that can create some mental, I think marrying your own first cousins and that may not affect you in the first bloodline, but doing it repeatedly. I think we had what was it, the Hamburg? No, is it the German family that everybody they intermarried that the Hamburg, right? And they intermarried so many times it started affecting their facial and their body structure. So yeah,
well,
and
look
a lot
at
of
King
people
Charles.
still,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I'm sorry to cut you off. King Charles, isn't he a little bit too inbred? Sorry.
Well, right, and they're all married to their Queen Victoria married all of her children to their first cousins. The Queen Victoria's her husband are the ones who's the royal family was going bankrupt because they'd lost everything because of everything, the world wars. So they did a deal with the Rothschilds. They intermarried Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria's secret is that Queen Victoria was a dude, right? So this was her secret, and we see the Victoria's Secret models, a lot of them are men. So this stuff goes on. That's why they call men in dresses queens, because the monarchies of Europe have practiced this throughout millennia. And it has something to do with whatever. I think it goes back to the Egyptian Book of the Dead, where they're literally, you can see where mind control kind of goes into their structure about 5,000 years ago. And there's even movies like Stargate. In movies, they literally made about it, or you can just go back and read it yourself. A lot of movies we see today are presented as fiction, but they're really, if you understand the Bible, if you understand, I used to work in Hollywood for a while, and one of my producers said, do some treatments. They had just bought some of Stan Lee's, the Marvel Comics characters. And I was looking, and I never liked carrots. I've always found them dark. They're so degrading to women. I'm like, he finally gives me an opportunity to write a short, what they call a treatment in the movie industry, which is like a two-page idea. And as soon as I started reading the characters, and I'm like, wait a second, these are Bible characters. And so the superheroes, they've made them into the heroes, but the superheroes are really the dark fallen angel types, right? And you can go right to Stan Lee. So I started seeing all this. So I'm like, does Stan Lee refer to the Torah to write his stuff? And you Google it, and it's all the Torah. Those are all characters. So if you understand the characters in the sci-fis and these movies that they always make about Egypt, they're all real. They're not made up stories. Sometimes they change them a little bit, but they're really the same stories that are being repeated back to us. And just like in all of our movies are about these poor criminals that have to be in the criminal world, but they're really humans. That's what they've done in the Bible. They've made the superheroes take, the bad people in the Bible took on the superhero venues because, they always have some kind of dark, Lex Luthor, he used to be good and then he went bad. And once you understand that, you start reading comics and these stories with a whole new light. So I don't know, I kind of got off on tangent there, but
No,
um,
you're right. Oh,
we're
you're
being told the stories through the media, and the media is predictive programming. That's why we call them TV programs. And we
yep.
watch the tell lie vision, right? We're telling someone's vision, not ours. I mean, so many times you can tell people who read the classics or people who watch the movie because the movie rarely goes along the classic. Someone will be trying to discuss something intelligent with you. I'm like, wait a second, did you watch the movie or did you actually read the book?
Hey,
Oh, well, I just saw the movie. I'm like, yeah, because that's not how the book goes. So we're constantly being programmed to see the world the way they want us to see it. And I guess that's one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on today is to see people that MK Ultra is something real and it is something being practiced on us. And also that there is hope because I know a lot of people who are of the mind that when we save these children and these people from human trafficking, they are damaged for life and they will in turn perpetrate that onto the people. So I think we have to overcome this myth. And I know that just like your father was an alcoholic, there's a good chance you're going to be an alcoholic. So there is predictive things that open people up to these different dark ways and dark things. So it's amazing that you've overcome. I'm so proud of you and that you get to tell the story here. I know I started watching some of your videos back in 2015, and you could see that you were really coming out of it and nowhere near today the way you can discuss it. And
thank
also,
you.
you probably had new memories come back. So it's been a changing field of recovery for you.
Yes, it has been. So, but thank you so much. Thank you for letting me put your viewer in my shoes for a little while to walk around in. I really, really appreciate that.
Oh, well, you're welcome. Did you have a copy of your book you might want to hold up and just maybe tell us how we could get a hold of you? Okay, so this is the cover of your new book.
Yeah, I
Kids in
drew
a Cage.
That's me. Um, so if my book will be released, I'll have an official PDF file. I'm hoping by November 30th this month for everyone to download, and it will include my autobiography as well as all of my drawings. But right now, my book is at the publisher for correction. But if you want a sneak peek of my book, my website is hollybaglio.com, and you can see my 125 drawings, their descriptions, and you can read my autobiography through my website right now. But again, I'll have the final finished product, I'm hoping by November 30th with all the corrections and additions. So,
Well, congratulations on your book. That's a big feat. Can you just comment on why you have X's over the eyes on the cover?
yeah, actually, the reason why is because we were half dead. Um,
Okay.
I didn't know how to draw half dead, but in this memory, Mangley, Joseph Mangley was electrocuting us over and over. And this little boy had said, he started talking to me and he said something. And I looked back at him and I just remember saying, we'll be lucky when we're dead. And at that point, I was giving up. And at that point, I had told myself, it's hurting me more now to go through this than it's going to hurt my grandparents to find out that I'm dead. I can't go through this anymore. So that's why I tried. That's why I drew it that way. So
Okay, wow. So we've really covered a lot of topics today. Did you want to finish off with anything before I go into my closing?
just I'm so happy to meet you, Simone, and thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. I've looked into some of your work and I really like it a lot. So,
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. It's been such a pleasure to have you. I know we'll have you come back. Maybe we'll get to meet sometime in the future.
yes.
And I know that we've covered a lot of very disturbing government programs that can be researched by anyone. So I invite people to go out. There's plenty of information, books, and you can go into the CIA's own archives and the government's own archives. They admit they did this. You can listen to congressional hearings as far back as the 1980s if you want to find out what's really going on. The question is, why haven't they stopped it? Blackmail, extortion, involvement, promotion of people who are in these cults to high level places so they can block it. And I think that's one of the things that we have to see is that a lot of the people who are motivated in the public eye are part of these programs. So most of us didn't know that super soldiers and underground military bases where they experimented on children really existed. And so thank you, Holly, for sharing your story. And like always, we please want you to do your own research and come to your own conclusions. As always, this presentation is made in hopes that never again will the truth be lost in translation. This is Holly and Simone signing off for today. Thank you. Bye bye.